Today's talk is called Are You All In? So I've got a couple of quotes like I usually do to get us started, but these are by Rumi. Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. He also says, everyone has been made for some particular work, and the desire for that work has been put in every heart. And lastly, this is love. To fly toward a secret sky, to cause 100 veils to fall each moment, to let go of life, finally to take a step without feet. So what does he mean by all this? And what do I mean when I ask you the question, are you all in? I'm saying that life cannot be taken with hedging your bets. I mean, it can be, but you won't get the most out of it. It doesn't matter if what you do succeeds or fails. What matters is that you lived each moment to the fullest, that you dove in head first. Because to not do so is to not live. You know, Dr. Holmes tells us the infinite knowingness becomes our wisdom only in such a degree as we embody its intelligence. Well, you cannot embody by going in, by just getting your feet wet. I mean, how many times have I or anyone gone into a situation in which, I'm just going to get my toe, I'm just going to put in my toe and feel the water and make sure it's okay before I dive in. Well, you don't learn anything from sticking in your toe. It may give you confidence and it may allow you to take that next step, but it really isn't until we're all in that life really has a chance to explode for us. Miracles happen when we are all in, when we dive in with everything we've got. You know, I was thinking the other day about Ash and my relationship, and something happened yesterday that actually, even though we're committed to getting married, transformed me even more into that level of commitment. Ash's youngest child, Kira, decided to play with cornstarch and red dye and water, and put these things together into a clump and to a liquidy thing that got everywhere. And so she thought, to be funny, that she would lie down on the floor and pour it all over herself and then yell for help like she was bleeding. And she just thought this was great fun. And the kitchen was covered in red and the floor was covered in red. And then when her mother finally got her into the bathroom to clean up, the bathroom was covered in red. And so there was a part of me that said, this is not mine. And then I realized, well, of course it is. And so then I started thinking about, well, what is good about this? Since this is mine, since this is in my life, this dramatic mess that has covered my apartment, since this is mine, what is great about this? And I thought how creative Kira is and how she's taking the time to passionately express her sense of humor. And how this is that I realized that I had been up to this moment yesterday thinking about my relationship with Ash as I was committed to Ash, and then there were her children. But in this moment, I realized that you can't separate a mother from her children, that there's an entire package there. And if I'm really in, I have to be all in, which includes the children, which includes those parts that maybe freak me out some. And so maybe you have an experience in your life where you maybe even think you're all in, but then there's this other part that you kind of hold at a distance. I even walked into the second bedroom and there was this pile of clothes that's been sitting there for 2 days because I thought they're the kids' clothes and stuff, so I don't have to deal with that. That's Ash's job to do. And then I realized, no, we're in this together. every part of it. There's not a part of it that we're not in together, that if I'm all in, then it even includes this. And so after Ash took the children back to her dad's house, I cleaned the house, folded the clothes, and got everything in order with joy, because I realized I am with the love of my life. And these are the parts that go with it. That I don't get to have Ash without her children. It's all one package. And so you might want to look at your life and see which areas you're not fully in, that maybe even you think you are, but there's that part of you that holds back in this area because you think, oh, this isn't mine. I want the rest of this. I mean, how many times do we want the best of something, but do our best to stay away from the parts that we're not so crazy about? But that's not being all in, and that's not where the miracles occur. Dr. Holmes tells us how much of this infinite good is ours. All of it. But how much of it may we have to use? As much of it as we can embody. So when we limit how much of what is around us in, when we say this part is ours, but this part isn't, we have not embodied the totality of what's possible. And so we are not using all that is available to us. We've actually cut off some of the flow that's possible when we get in that sense of richness of the entirety that is there for us. Are you all in? And if you're not, I highly recommend it. Life is about passion. It's not about safety. Now, I'm not saying don't be safe, but I'm saying if you're using safety as your standard by hedging your bets, then you are actually cutting off the life flow of miracles that's possible. Life is constantly a leap of faith, one right after the next. And then if you hit bottom, know that life is for your good. It must be, because it's infinite. What we have here is an infinite universe with infinite resources that are always at our disposal, but we can only use it to the extent at which we open ourselves to the totality and are all in with everything going on around us, especially our choices. If one wishes to demonstrate prosperity, he must first have a consciousness of prosperity. If he wishes health, he must embody the idea of health. Well, that's a full embodiment. That again was Dr. Holmes. We have to take on the hugeness of every part of our lives and be willing to go deeper and deeper and deeper into that, so that the embodiment of the hugeness, of the abundance, of the prosperity, of the health, of the wellness, of the wholeness that is available to us comes in and sinks in, so it's not just a thought. Thoughts are great, and it all starts with thoughts, but then it's got to sink into the heart. It's got to sink into the body. It's got to sink into the beingness. And that takes being all in. And if you're all in, one thing I realized a long time ago is if I am all in, I might as well see the good in it. Now, I can choose to leave, and I can choose a different experience, but if I'm choosing to stay, I might as well see the good in it. And if I'm not doing that, I'm cheating myself. I'm cheating myself out of this moment. And that's what we have here. We have each and every moment an opportunity to grow and to take on something larger. I started a suicide crisis hotline because I simply wanted to volunteer for one. I wanted to volunteer for a suicide crisis hotline. And then found out that in the town I was living in, and at that point living in for 15 years, didn't have one. And so I had to ask myself, was I all in? Since it was mine to do to volunteer for a suicide crisis hotline, and there wasn't one, was I all in? And I was. So I put out the word that I was going to create one. And lo and behold, by taking that leap of faith, an organization stepped up and said, we'll train you at how to do this. Another organization stepped up and said, here's the money to get started. Another organization stepped up and said, here's the place you can do it for free. And so in 4 months from the day I said, I'm all in, we started taking calls with 60 volunteers. And in the 3 years I ran that suicide crisis hotline, we took over 10,000 calls. And then I made a different choice and handed it off to the largest Christian organization in town. So that now Asheville has a suicide crisis hotline. But it starts with being all in, even though it didn't seem feasible or possible. I didn't have any training in that. I didn't know anything about it. And I certainly didn't know where the money was going to come from to make it happen. But when we are willing to simply do what is in front of us to do and say, okay, since this is in front of me to do, I am all in. Instead of going, oh, I know this is in front of me to do, but let me just put in my toe first and test the waters, and maybe I'll go over here, and because I don't want all my eggs in one basket. And so I'm going to go over here and try all this stuff too, right? That big, realistic saying, don't have all your eggs in one basket. Well, I say have all your eggs in one basket. Go for it. Be all in. That's where the power is. That's where the presence is. That's where the miracles exist. Dr. Holmes tells us every day, every moment, every second, there is choice. Wherever you put your choice, be all in. Because it's only through being all in that you give all power and you receive all power. What we focus on is what we create. If we're focused all over the place, our energy is dissipated. When we put it here, where our passion is, then all of a sudden, miracles pop into our lives. Let the miracles pop into your life. Be all in. Thank you. I love you.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.